Hey daddies, bring your dragons, let's go to deep space, yeah. Hey daddies, bring your dragons, let's go to deep space.
Hi, William.
Hi, Jacob.
How have you been?
Pretty good. How about you?
Also pretty good. Hi, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Dragon's Daddy's Deep Space, your favorite weekly podcast about whatever William and I decided to talk about, but also about one book a month.
Yes, and this book is Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Tchaikovsky. Have you ever heard of the Nutcracker?
I have, yes.
That's Tchaikovsky.
I have.
Wait, I think it's Tchaikovsky. Let me actually make sure of that.
I know he's like a name. I thought he was a Russian lit person. It's a different Tchaikovsky, by the way, just so you're not confused.
Oh yeah, listeners, it's not the same Tchaikovsky.
Man of many talents.
The ballet from 1892.
It's like the best-selling author of the Nutcracker.
It's not the same person who wrote Alien Clay in 2024.
Jacob, what have you been up to this week?
I was recovering from my illness. I'm feeling all the way better now, which is amazing. Just in time for the events of the world just sort of hit me over the head yesterday.
Yes.
As they tend to do. And then this afternoon, I decided to watch this week's episode of Paradise. So we're recording this on March 1st. So the episode 7 of Paradise is all the story of how the world ended. And it was very upsetting. I was kind of curled on my couch crying out of fear.
Oh no.
For a lot of it, while William was sending me memes about the grid going down. I'm like, this is the wrong...
They weren't memes. I do love a niche Instagram community of these doomsday preppers. They're all kind of evangelists, and I follow them and I sort of half believe everything they say. So I was just texting to Jacob. It was all about having faith in God and being prepared when the grid goes down. As Jacob is curled in a ball. I didn't realize you were curled in a ball crying.
I was literally the world is gonna end. We're not being taken care of by good people. And it's going to be way worse than even this.
Those are some really timely memes I sent to you.
Really
and also,
memes.
The world is slowly creeping towards the mandate, in the worst possible way. But Jacob, I have to tell you, I have had one woman on my mind this entire week.
Who?
Do you know who it is?
No.
Jenny Haniver.
Jenny Haniver. We're obsessed with Jenny Haniver. Can we bring the trend of Jenny Hanivers back?
Where Jenny Hanivers need to come back. What did you say about her name? You were it sounds like somebody you went to middle school with.
Yeah, it's literally from your finance department.
Oh yeah, Jenny Haniver on Slack was such a bitch. Yeah.
Exactly.
If you guys don't forget, Jenny Haniver was referenced in part 1, and I have a little definition. It's the carcass of a ray or a skate that has been modified and then hand-dried, resulting in a mummified specimen intended to resemble a fanciful fictional creature, such as a demon or a dragon. So they take a little baby stingray, dry it, carve a little face into it. It's called a Jenny Haniver. It was a popular thing in the 16th century.
And literally, I know that sounds like a horror show, but they are so freaking
They're
cute.
So cute. Please see the reel for reference.
Yeah, check out DGDS Pod on Instagram. Follow.
And TikTok.
Everything that we post.
But I tried to do...
Go ahead.
I tried to do some more research on them because I'm what? I don't get it. I guess they were also told in the 16th century, they were sold as I guess, I don't know, little trinkets or something. And people believe they were basilisks because I guess that was a really common fear in the 16th century. And nobody knew what a basilisk looked like because if you saw one, you died. So they were ooh, this is a baby basilisk. They would sell them. Nobody knows where the term Jenny Haniver comes from either. I've looked into this. There is a rumor. One theory is that it comes from the French Jeune d'Anvers, which means young girl from Antwerp. That's the most popular theory. The Jeune d'Anvers, Jenny Haniver, or young girl from Antwerp. But why would they call these little things young girl from Antwerp?
It really does not make sense.
It was clearly an inside joke, and that some of that was really funny and somehow just spread. And this is not a global phenomenon. I don't know what the trade routes were back then, but I also did some more looking into this, and I guess it's also like suggested Wikipedia thing is the Fiji mermaid. Have you heard of this?
No, what's the Fiji mermaid?
What's funny is it's spelled Fiji, but also Fiji like the place, but also Feejee. I guess was something that Japanese sailors sold in the 16th century. That was it would take the torso of a blue monkey, cut it off, and sew it onto the bottom half of a salmon, and then mummify it. And they sold it as like a mermaid corpse. It's called a Fiji mermaid, and they would display them at like museums and sideshows and stuff.
It's really like interesting and kind of fucked up the way that the internet and the proliferation of information has just like really killed certain cons, but made other cons way too possible.
You cannot. This would not slide nowadays.
Yeah,
Is what you're saying?
Yeah, you can't scam with a fake mermaid now.
But back then, I guess it was really believable. Like, I mean, they were like, "This is obviously a mermaid," and supposedly all the Japanese sailors knew that they were just conning these white merchants buying them. But then I realized it's also an example of one of my favorite things of all time, the most underrated art form,
Taxidermy?
crypto taxidermy. Is it not?
It is. Is crypto taxidermy like a cryptid in
Yeah,
taxidermy?
or like
Okay.
like a made up like a jackalope is obviously the most common form of crypto taxidermy. In another life, I would have been a crypto taxidermist. Maybe in this life.
Maybe in this life. I think it's not too late.
And I've got one more thing that's made me think of. I have to show you this. Do you have your phone on you?
I do.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a link on Instagram. I'm gonna use this moment again to say please follow us at DDDS Pod on Instagram, TikTok. Okay, wait, Jacob, you're gonna have to see this. I don't know where I found this, but I found this guy who does these realistic baby mermaids. Are you seeing?
I hate it. But I
Look at it.
he just the arms are so posable. The belly button I hate.
It's like, you ever seen those like real dolls? People make those creepily realistic like infants, like in that movie, that TV show, M. Night Shyamalan's Servant. It's like
loved that
it's
show.
those. Me too. But it's those, but a mermaid, like a hyper realistic, rubbery little baby mermaid, and I want one
I was
so
gonna say I know
badly.
what Im's getting for his birthday,
As
August
a kid-
28th. For
Can you
interested
imagine, like,
listeners,
I picture, please, I'm gonna do a GoFundMe for one of these. I'm gonna name her Jenny Haniver, of course.
yeah, of course.
Imagine like some pushing like the horror of someone pushing like a stroller, and not only is it one of those like real babies, they're like, oh, what's in there? And open it up, and it's baby sea monster.
You're just like pushing a stroller down the street.
Yeah, but it's like filled with sloshing water. It's
I picture you with a really cute pram.
a little.
Not like a big thing, like a little guy.
I was thinking a little like steampunky, to go with my baby mermaid sloshing about. It's a little baby Jenny. So listeners, please save all your money to get me a realistic mermaid.
Cost from Dimitri.arts.
Dimitri also, he makes realistic mermaid tails too. And there's all these videos. There's one video of someone swimming in this gorgeous rubbery realistic tail in a pool, holding the hand of one of these baby mermaids, and it's
Is he part of like the real mermaid community? Because there's like a mermaid community.
yes, 100%. He's one of those mermaid LARPers, lifers.
Yeah, I love that.
We'll look up the totals sometime soon. But all right. So should we get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it. So
Okay, let's go.
Let's talk about part 2 of Alien Clay.
Part 2.
Egalite.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jacob, what does that mean?
Egalite means equality.
And what was part 1?
Liberté, which means liberty. Liberty, equality, brotherhood is the last part.
Fraternité.
Fraternité.
Yeah, just quick recap where we left off is that Earth turned into the Mandate evil oppressive regime, and they sent political prisoners to a extrasolar penal colony where they use convict labor to explore an alien planet. And our main character, Dadev, was a ecologist turned revolutionary who was sent to this alien planet. And part 1, he joined up with the rebels and tried to have another little revolution that was completely stopped, and then he got put into a cage with the creepy lady who was infected by this alien space virus. And that's kind of where we left off.
That's exactly where we left off, because at the beginning of part 2, we learn that Dadev ends up spending 2 days in the room with Ilsa Rasmussen, who's the creepy infected space lady who was like the original researcher on
She's
Kiln.
like over 100 years old. She can't die. She's just infected. Like, I mean, disgusting. Like oozing pus, mold, fungus. It's giving like what's that zombie show on HBO?
The Walking Dead.
No, The Last of Us.
You're right.
It's kind of giving The Last of Us a little bit. But she can kind of talk. It makes these like hoots and hollers and warbly, really gross, creepy alien noises.
And he starts to he sort of thinks that she's communicating with him.
Yes.
Which is scary. But then after his 2 days in with Ilsa, he gets out and he learns that Clem, who was leading the revolutionary subcommittee, got tanked and infected to death.
Yeah, the man in the tank. Or I guess they always have a man in the tank who is... It's a front for like scientific study, but really it's like a punishment. It's example. They infect you with alien ecology and you just sit in this tank. Oh yeah, and they describe having like ridges growing out of his skin and little tendrils coming out of like open sores. It's disgusting.
Yeah, this section really, I mean, the whole book I think really leans into the gross, but this section was pretty gross.
Yeah, it's really leaning into like it's really sci-fi horror.
It is sci-fi horror and I'm still loving it.
I love it. Oh my god, I cannot wait to talk about the elephants.
Oh my god, the elephant!
I cannot wait. Okay,
We'll get there. So, because everybody got put down from the Revolutionary Subcommittee, there are some people who stayed undetected, I guess, but there's a lot of suspicion as to who informed, and the main suspect is Dadev because he got sort of special treatment from Commandant Terrelin before the revolution, and then he got put in with Ilsa afterwards, so they feel like he's being treated differently. They don't know that he was with Ilsa.
Yeah, they think he's getting like, martinis and massages the whole time, and that he got special treatment for ratting them all out. And that's what Terrelin, the command, meant. They had this thing. He does this. He got commandant. Sorry. Commandant, my bad.
I just don't want the haters to get you. We have a hater now.
We can't go there. It's too raw. No slandering. We do not slander. But the Terrelin, the head of this little colony, uses like mistrust and paranoia to kind of keep all of the prisoners at each other's throats and to sow sort of discord so they can't all band together. So everyone distrusts him. They think that he sold them out.
Yep. And he gets put on an excursion team. If you don't remember, there are different groups of people in the penal colony on Kiln. And the most dangerous assignment that you can have is on excursions, because that means that you're out in the wild doing something. We don't know at the beginning exactly of this section exactly what they're doing, but you're out doing something, and everybody who goes on excursions ends up dead.
It's the highest turnover rate.
Highest turnover, because you are spending time out there, and then you do get decontaminated, but it seems as though eventually enough of Kiln gets into you that the parts that get decontaminated are so much of what's keeping you alive that you die.
Yes. And then they throw you in the incinerator.
Yep.
And so, yeah, Excursions is run by Kiev. So how do you say his name?
It's the only way I've got.
Okay, Kiev. And we've seen him in the part 1. He's honestly our first, only really daddy character. He's described as... we haven't really done any daddies thus far. He's described as like grizzled, gray, kind of tough. He's also Kiev 1611. He's the... Which seems like he... Dadev is number 2000 something. So this guy has been almost against all the odds for a long time, especially considering that he is running Excursions, the most dangerous job assignment you can have.
Do you know what? On the daddy note I was thinking about this week?
What?
We haven't encountered a single dragon.
I really hope we see a Kiln dragon.
Well, I mean, in this book, in Mistborn, we've got to figure out a dragon.
We had deep space. I mean, I think we had, kind of shallow space. If you think about it, the book started with the ship breaking apart in the atmosphere. So I wouldn't call that deep space. I would call that shallow space.
Yeah.
We have daddies. We even have an elephant daddy in this one. We need dragons. I mean, one of my dream list of books to do is Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern. So.
Pern addicts.
Pern addicts.
Anyway. So he's on the excursion team. His friend Ilma Citrine, the non-binary scientist, is also in that team.
Yes, and they distrust Dadev. They think that Dadev is the one who sold them out and is tempted to push him off their transport vehicle.
Yeah, Ilmis is not reacting well to the whole revolution falling apart. and the betrayal, and especially because Nimel Permat, who was the former non-prisoner who's fucked Dadev.
Yes, the one-legged evil doctor lady.
Do you know what I also was thinking about? I want to picture her as Aviva from The Real Housewives of New York
really?
City, who famously had one leg, because it's like the right disposition and one-leggedness.
I mean, that is a funny casting.
But
That's not how I pictured her personally.
I know, because I think she's supposed to be like quite rotund.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was like some line about her being like an excess of flesh.
Oh, that's funny.
But anyway, I'm picturing Aviva.
Shows, yeah. Evil Doctor Lady Permat was also, they thought she was part of the rebellion uprising just because she slept with Dadev, and Dadev kind of stole samples from her during their little sexual dalliance in part 1. Did I say that word right?
I liked the way that you said it.
Okay. Just because it's not right doesn't mean it's not good. So she's there with them in the excursions. All the rebels who are still alive are put onto excursions, and they put them onto a little vehicle. It seems like a hovercraft, like a drone of some sort, right?
Yeah, it was kind of confusingly described like a helicopter with the blades underneath it. I just chose to picture a thopter from Dune.
Oh, a thopter, but like a really shitty one. They constantly reinforce how cheap everything here is. If you think, like, when they first sent them to this planet on the spaceship that broke apart in orbit, they did that because it's cheaper to just have a cheap-ass ship thrown through space and break apart in orbit than it is to have a ship that would be able to go in the atmosphere, turn around, and go back. And so everything's 3D printed. They constantly remind them that, like their filters and face masks that they wear out on excursions are, like, made of paper. They're always like, there is one sheet of paper between you and this alien biome trying to kill you. So they're on this thopter. That's, good enough description. Ilmas considers throwing him overboard because they think that he betrayed them, but he convinced them that it wasn't him, or at least got them to consider that maybe it wasn't.
They're sort of just like, the rampant paranoia continues, even though they end up finding more things to be scared of.
That, I guess, when Dada joins this crew, or all the rebels do, it messes up the gassing protocol that they have, and Kiev is really mad and calls them "you fucking Jonahs." Did you pick up on this?
Yeah, and there's another reference to Jonah.
Yeah, so I was like, what the fuck is... So I looked it up, and Jonah is a long-established expression among sailors to mean a sailor or passenger who is considered bad luck, like a jinx.
Yeah,
I think. Do you know about the Bible?
Yeah, it comes from the Bible, because when Jonah is hiding from God, he tries to get away from God via sea, and God finds him and sends a storm that is like really bad for the ship, and then they decide to throw Jonah overboard because that will like get the curse off of their ship. They throw Jonah overboard, and that's how he gets swallowed by the whale.
Oh, Jonah and the whale. I knew it was biblical because it sounded like you Judas, like you fucking Jonahs. I never heard that before, but it is interesting that, like the Jenny Haniver, it's kind of another reference to early sailboat people. I don't know what you call them. Like early maritime seafaring, which kind of makes sense because, back then they go to these open ocean. There were creatures they never heard of, sea monsters, giant squid, uncharted lands. So it kind of fits with the themes and tone of this book.
So they're going off to their first excursion site as excursionistas, which I love that they call them that.
Did they really call them that?
Yeah, they're excursionistas. They're like going to TJ Maxx.
Does he call them that, or do another character call them?
Todd calls them. It's in the narration that they're excursionistas.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay.
So what they do is they get to a spot that's determined because there seem to be these like Kilnish ruins. Again, if you don't remember, they are primarily investigating these ruins that seem to have been built by intelligent life that have writing on them. So they get to a place where there is one of these ruins, and then they use just flamethrowers to clear out a spot in the vegetation and the fauna.
Yeah, I guess the forest there is really thick, so they can't land the thopter down. So they send these excursionistas to go just burn them down. And they describe these alien trees. I think in the beginning we saw one too. It looks like basically like a giant tuber, almost like a massive turnip with like a spiraling, they call it a rosette, almost like the inside of a rose petal. But instead of petals, it's these giant sail leaves, like the size of a sail, but black. And I think filled with fluid, almost like an aloe leaf.
Yeah, and I think it's these first trees that when they're blowing them, when they're flame throwing them, they end up just like exploding into solid chunks.
I loved that description of it. So yeah, and it's so funny because these are scientists who are so used to doing perfectly a sample, being so careful and protective, and here they are just blowing shit up. But they give them these flamethrowers, and then they're like, okay, make sure to run. They don't run, and it just sort of like cracks, and there's a sort of like gelatinous mass and size that expands, and then the tree just blows up. And I think the bark is made, I imagine, almost like palm tree. I think it's like a fibrous ridged outside, and they kind of get blown back. Poor doctor lady, she's on one leg, so she really fell over.
Her one-leggedness really comes to screw her up.
Yeah, they're in these woods, and I've been trying to make note of because I'm obsessed. I'm like, the one thing I want out of this book, and which we're getting, is like this alien life. I'm like, I'm gonna see what this planet looks like. And so yeah, we have these trees. They all seem to be the same. They said there's exhalations of the forest, like horizontal blankets of faint black smoke, and I think those are kind of like the aerial plankton they reference, like little clouds of wisping creatures. And they say that there's air whales that look like massive beings made of like plastic bags and cellophane, almost kind of drifting through the sky. So we've seen those. We see the alien trees. And yeah, they just start blowing them up so that they can clear space for the hovercraft to land.
And then, so as they're clearing things away, they realize, or Dadav starts to notice that the jungle is like really loud.
I love that.
And the jungle is really loud because the trees, they assume, are communicating with each other.
Yeah, they say the woods are talking, and then the doctor later points out to notice that it got really quiet when we landed, and only now it's starting up again. And also going to say that I'm loving this evil doctor lady now.
I don't know that she's so evil.
Well, I guess I should just call her Doctor Lady.
One
Doctor Lady. She's really grown on me because she's sort of like angry, yes. And it seems like she was also betrayed by a colleague trying to take over her position. That was another reason she was implicated in this and kind of framed. But she's angry, but she's resigned. But now she's all of a sudden like free. She's like, she had to sort of play along with the evil Terralyn, head of the little organization here. But now she's kind of free and down to her sort of scientist roots. And she talks about the forest talking to each other.
And I think one of the things that I was tracking throughout this section is the way that they start to characterize very consistently the biology of Kiln as like an economic structure, or that there's like it's like a job system. So like here she says that on Earth some plants produce food for insects, even form hospitable dwelling structures for them to live in, so the insects will defend the plant from more damaging herbivores. Here that's magnified 1,000-fold. Every living thing has a whole job market going, a suite of functions it prefers to outsource rather than deal with in-house. So, like, what I think is happening here, and I charted it throughout the section, is like it's again we're reading these human systems into a biology that we can't understand in human terms. So, like, for us to understand the trade-off, we think that it has to be economic, like things are getting things from each other.
I found that fascinating. Yeah, it's happened over and over again, because we talked about this in the first part when they were dissecting the creatures, but it looks like each creature is sort of a conglomeration of different, also conglomeration, like a business thing, of different creatures all squished together like Legos or Mr. Potato Head, where like a leg of one creature could separate and join another creature, and they're constantly changing and evolving. So let's kind of take this as an opportunity to talk about some examples of that. They reference like Earth-like creatures. They reference this like one marine isopod that eats the tongue of fish and then replaces the tongue so that it can eat food. But they said that, like this fish tongue has to actually be a good fish tongue to kind of stay as its role in it.
And might, in fact, be a better tongue than the fish's tongue, which is why the, like, system has evolved for that to happen.
And they talk about an ant where there's a mite that goes on the edge of its foot to eat food, but that, when the ants grab each other's hands to hold on to, like, make bridges and stuff, so, like, the mite is actually doing a really good job. So we have these examples of these, a couple different ones, too. Did you catch any other sort of like Earth-like comparisons that they used?
No, I was tracking the money.
The money. There's a couple other money. At one point he refers to all the different creatures as little subcommittees.
I know.
I loved that.
And like, there's like a gig economy reference. I'll get to like more of that later because I think it culminates. I think it culminates at the end of the section.
Okay, great. All right, let's keep going then.
Let's keep going. So this is also around the time that we learn what the gas clock is, which is that the excursionists only get decontaminated every 3 days that they're out. So they're actually not decontaminated.
No, not at all.
Like the whole base is pretty contaminated, and they just don't care.
Yeah, Dadev is pretty shocked by this. And every 3 days it happens, but now because they joined, they kind of reset the gassing clock, which makes Kiev really pissed off because he was on I think his team was on day 2 for the gassing, so now he's getting 2 extra days of this, and it seems like you're really kind of the gassing is just like really racing the clock to sort of not end up like the man in the tank or Ilmis Rasmussen, I think they call her a wild ape in her cage or whatever. But yeah, they burn down some more of these plants to get access to the alien ruins. And I think Dadev describes it. He's like, to him, he's like, these ruins are nothing. He's like, he's still not convinced they're sentient forms. He thinks they might just be like termite mounds. And he's like, what you're destroying is the real science. All the plants and the vines and everything clinging to these ruins are the real thing to study, not these ruins where the scientists can go, rub etchings on the markings and try to make up their own theories about intelligent life here.
Right. And Dadev is getting increasingly annoyed about his part in that. He's also frustrated that the base isn't being kept decontaminated and that the excursionists are being treated like complete refuse to throw away. So he goes after this guy named Booth, who is part of the revolutionary subcommittee. His suit filtration system breaks, and he starts to feel ill. And so Dadev then goes and tries to petition Commandant Terlin to allow the excursionistas to get gassed every day to actually decontaminate them and help protect against disease. But Terlin's like, only if you rat out everybody who is in the subcommittee. And then Dadev is like, no. So that ends up being a dead end.
He's tempted, honestly, for a moment, but he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not who he is.
And then the immediate next thing to happen is Booth dies. It's pretty unclear as to whether Booth was beaten to death, if he got infected and then his system shut down, or what. But they just know that he's dead. The next day is probably the second best part of the section, which is when the elephant attacks.
The elephant! I've been waiting for that. Did not disappoint. Did not disappoint. So, we've referenced last one that if anyone's seen Scavenger's Reign on HBO, it literally is this book.
It is.
Completely 100% to a T. They're one and the same in just terms of visuals, it's honestly incredible. It's really helped me sort of visualize this world in my head. But so they're doing their thing, burning plants, and they get attacked by an elephant.
An elephant. And I love the way that Dadev and Tchaikovsky describe it is just and then the elephant appeared. It's like an actual elephant. And then he walks it back and he's like, well, the reason that I would assume that it's an elephant is because it has a trunk. I wrote down the whole description. It has a trunk, and at first glance, I think it was upward curving tusks below, which all says elephant to an Earth-adapted eye. Admittedly, no elephant has eyes on stalks like that. Plus, the fact that it lollops along on 3 extending and contracting pillar legs is a bit of a giveaway that what's come to remonstrate with us isn't your average pachyderm. Oh, and it has a pair of flame-colored metallic plumes jutting from its back that I'm sure are some other creature entirely. Its long whip tail has a fan of bright scales on the end that semaphores wildly at us. The main body of the thing is a pale, moldy green, and it makes weeping sounds, as though it's devoured a clutch of unhappy kittens. And, so that's, end rant. But it reminds me of the beginning when, we're just getting disconnected images, and then the whole is coming together. That's the way that Dadev is also experiencing these creatures, because it's
oh, interesting.
This is the thing that I recognize, and then he can start to pull it apart into the very unrecognizable things that he's describing.
I know. Can you picture in your head?
No.
So yeah, an elephant comes stomping out of the trees, and also it's not an elephant. It's not stomping. It's on these sort of snail-like inflatable appendages that sort of roll, crawl, tripod, And then this is what I love. It immediately attacks him, and he goes, what I interpreted as tusks turned out to be semi-retracted arms ending in barbed spears that like shoot out of the elephant's face and like stab somebody.
And it says turn him to paste.
Yes, and then okay, this is the coolest part in my mind is that they're shooting with this elephant with a staple gun because I guess that's all they had on side, and gashing its hide open with great slashing wounds. Inside, I see what should be intestines, except instead of slithering out through the holes, they sprout their own stubby spurs and limbs, clutching at the edges of the tears and pulling them closed, suturing their host from the inside like good little symbionts. It's so sick.
It's so freaky, and it reminds me of the last shot of the Severance season 2 intro with the hands reaching out from the back of the skull and pulling out.
Oh, I always skip the intro.
I never skip an intro. Ever.
But
I watched the intro to Yellow Jackets. That's how committed I am to intros.
I do like that intro though.
It's horrible.
I like the song. But yeah, like ripping its side of its flesh, intestines, but then the intestines have their own little arms and things, and they just grab the skin and like pull it back together because every single part of this creature is their own individual creature. It is so freaking cool. I think the elephant runs away after they shoot at it a bunch, right?
Yeah, they shoot at it. Dadav like sort of imagines that he's understood something in its voice, and he's like constantly expecting it to just start talking to him in intelligible language, but then it just sort of like lumbers away. Yeah, and then he says, this made me laugh. He goes, there are close encounters of the 4th, 5th, and 6th kinds all happening at once. My only note for this chapter was, kill an elephant attacks. Wait, I wrote elephant attacks, exclamation point.
Me too. Kill an elephant attacks. It sums up that chapter perfectly.
But to quote us over and over again for Mistborn, it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool, you guys. Trust us. So the next chapter goes a lot into kind of like talking about the alien ecology here, right?
Yeah, and again, we're like with economics. So they finish their clearing of that site. Dadav is like, again, really frustrated that what he's doing is destroying the ecosystem. He can't get context for the whole thing. And so then he decides to talk about it with Primat, the doctor lady. And the two of them compare it to a gig economy. That like everybody is, all the like component organisms are just like catching up and getting new jobs and then latching onto a new thing. So it's like hard to like understand the context because there's like a whole other layer of evolution and biology that we don't have on Earth that's on Kiln. And then Primat is like, oh, well, you know, I've read Rasmussen's findings. And she basically was like, just like you, she was getting frustrated by that. And Dadav's summary of Rasmussen's findings is that on Kiln, you'd have the biological equivalent of a door-to-door lung salesman doing big business as it sold its services to everything that was finding it hard to breathe. Everything is an opportunist here, but the opportunity in question isn't the chance to eat something or outcompete something. Macro species become extinct all the time, I guess, but the pieces that comprise them go on to form new partnerships, like directors of bankrupt companies setting up under a new name.
It's kind of funny.
It's kind of funny, and it's so cynical.
It's so cynical. It's really interesting, you know, being in a first-person point of view, because, again, there is some humor and there is some cynicism, and you get the sense that this guy is, I mean, he's losing it. He's in insane conditions, and he's kind of losing it and trying to understand everything with a slight edge of humor to kind of, you know, like cut the brunt of it. And he talks about, yeah, you said that ecology is all about context, and he's like, oh, context is everything, but here there is no context, because everything, he says, how can you learn the ecology when everything can switch partners the moment the dance changes tempo? And he talks about, you know, how on Earth, evolution takes tens of thousands of years for the smallest to change, millions of years for the biggest one, but this happens in the blink of an eye. And so he's unable to even possibly understand it from an ecological point of view, so he's trying to understand it from like a capitalist and commerce point of view.
Right. And we'll get to what I think it's all about. Because... I mean, I don't know. Like, here's the thing. It's hard to read a book and analyze it halfway through.
It is true.
That's what I've discovered. So
we're learning this in real time.
We're learning this in real time, listeners. This is my reading today. But so there's like more paranoia over who the traitor is. Dadav tries to help Primat because he's also warming to her and he wants her to make new friends too.
And it's kind of his fault that she's there. I mean, I know she was evil doctor lady, but I guess she wasn't really evil. She was doing what she could do in an impossible situation.
Yeah. Let's like pour one out for Dr. Pramat.
Pouring out for Dr. Permat. And this is when I guess he goes back to base and the guards are like, hey, Terrelin has a little surprise for you. Somebody wants to have a cup of tea with you. And
Yeah.
he's like, ooh, who is it? And they throw him back in the cage with Ilsa Rasmussen.
Yeah, they said that she's been asking for him.
Really, she does talk sometimes. And then they describe it as she presses her face against like the divide between them so much that her eyeball smushes, her lips are smushed. It's really gross.
And he thinks that he hears her say to him, "Give him to me. Let us join the bridge."
Yeah, we don't know what that is. It's fucked up is what it is. All right, so next, this is really exciting. So the start of the next chapter is like they go to a new location because they're trying to clear the vegetation so they can get access to a new ruin. I think the end of the chapter they go, and then a few days of banal drudgery later, there's a new assignment, and it's Keeve's crew on the Rhoda again, and this is when it all goes spectacularly wrong. And they go to a new site, and they say the forest is strange here, even by Kiln standards.
And how is it strange?
Well, it's like it's wetter. It's more like I think of like a wetlands, tropical forest, and the trees here, the same kind of trees, but instead of being like hard palm tree-esque edges, they quiver like water-filled balloons when you push past them.
And then when you flamethrow them, they just sort of like
They just explode in wet, disgusting, gelatinous stuff. They say they're even flower-type plants. They say tall stalks studded with translucent windsocks and topped with the helix of sun-drinking teardrops, the Kilnish equivalent of water meadow wildflowers. So we're at kind of like a different kind of environment here, and they say that even this new ruin is covered in these vines that then shoot out little stingers and barbs at you.
Yeah, and Dadev seems to like think of this ruin as more legitimate. I got the sense like,
Oh, why is that?
I forget. He's like, I think the chapter starts with him saying, "This time it is a real ruin." When we've exploded a couple of trees to get boots on the ground, we can see it, furred over with vines and some luminous phallic things like dryland sea squirts that I haven't encountered before.
Wonder why he thinks of them as real ruins.
It could be because of what happens next.
Okay, well, so we're in this new, they're trying to clear out these, they're getting flung with little stingers, like little darts hitting them. And then what comes running out of the trees?
The elephant daddy.
The elephant, which is like exactly what he calls it. He goes, the elephant's dad arrives. And this is so, if that was a baby elephant before, this one is another tripod thing on broad rubber feet, half stepping, half rolling. Its upper reaches are armored, an accretion of minerals from its diet secreted out onto skin in rippling plates that glisten as if they're still drying. And the arms, 3 arched, articulated limbs held high up to the elbow and then hooked down, fold into its body. Some empty space within it, or maybe some vocal and semi-dependent passenger, makes a hollow knocking sound. It's exactly like the big door knocker of a creepy old house in some horror media. And it pushes through these trees, and it says its body squeezes between 2 of the jelly flesh trees, which just sort of like push out of way, and makes this knock, knock, knock creepy sound from its throat. It's glistening, it's covered in armored plates, it's got these like praying mantis arms tucked up to its body.
And then my like least favorite detail, it has eyes scattered like acne across its flabby pieces of body.
Yeah, all over it. At one point it goes, the elephant's dad stares at me with somebody else's eyes, or something else's eyes, because they're all independent parts.
And that's when he considers like the fish with the tongue.
With the tongue. Yeah, he goes, all those eyes are most likely their own thing. Semi-independent symbiotes holding up signs that say, "Will provide superior vision for food," and then taking root in the new host's original eye sockets.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Kill.
Killing who?
Just kill. Killing. Killing.
Fuck off.
It's from
Just killing it.
That's from page 228.
Does it really say that?
Yeah.
This narrator is going literally losing his mind.
Yeah, he's going cuckoo bananas.
They say this elephant is 4 meters tall. How many feet is that?
It's like 4 meters is under 12. 4 meters in feet. Oh, It's 13 feet. I stand corrected.
Really close. Okay, so really freaking tall, comes out of the tree, pushing through these gelatinous, warbling, jelly-filled trees, and it attacks.
Well, they start to flamethrow it, and and then the elephant's dad does not enjoy that, and it sort of jumps onto another set of legs.
Yeah, it says those little praying mantis legs it had tucked in its body shoot down and become its new legs, and it says the big armored limbs snap down to become new and better legs, lifting the thing's sagging body up over human head height. Suddenly, it's scuttling towards us, stilt-legged and spider-swift.
Ew.
Yeah, Jacob hates spiders.
I hate spiders. And what I would hate more is if spiders had mouths on their feet.
Yeah, so then its original little snail-like appendages that were originally moved on are now come out as little suckers with mouths on the end, pick up one of the dudes, throws him at a tree. I guess the tree, if you hit it really hard, turns stone. So throws at a tree, all of his bones break. And then it's running on these disturbing mantis spider legs, while little previous sucker legs and mouths at the end are now trying to reach and scoop people up.
And basically, it's able to, like, hoover anything in sight. It,
Yeah.
like...
It's really, really fucking scary.
It's a nightmare creature. And then it destroys their thopter.
Oh yeah, it sees their thopter, just jumps on it. It just jumps on it, flattens it, smooches it, breaks it to a bunch of little tiny pieces.
And again, like, the other through line of the description of the elephant's dad is that there's, like, economic language where...
Well, when they're running into the shelter, they try to run into the shelter. Those barbed thorns grab at somebody before, and it says the thorns clutch out like a hand and have him trapped, one of his other excursionistas. They weren't barbed before, but certainly are now. Some new shareholder in their limited company has turned up and added backwards pointing prongs to their tips.
Right. And then the eyes, it says, are semi-independent symbionts holding up signs that say, will provide superior vision for food, and then taking root in their new host's original eye sockets. So, like, it's such a motif.
Do you want to say what you think it is now, or save that for the end?
Well, I'll talk through it. So because they flee from the elephant's dad, they're a couple people down, and they bed down inside the ruin, and they discover that it's like some sort of, they think, star chamber with like a map of constellations in the ceiling.
Yeah, there's little holes in the ceiling that seem to be some sort of star pattern.
Which, like, to our human understanding says, oh, these people, or whoever created this, had like maps of the stars, and they put it up there. But then this is when economics starts to play a role, not just in the description, but in the human storyline, because they don't have a thopter left. They can't get back to base, but they have a limited supply of food that Kiev starts dividing and rationing out. And one of my favorite definitions of economics is that it's the study of how people use limited resources to satisfy unlimited wants and needs. So they have like this finite supply of rations. They have a journey that they have to get across, and they have less food than would sustain them on that journey. So it's like a fundamentally economic problem that they have to solve. And they create a radio. They radio the base. The base says to stay where you are. We're going to come for you. But then they know that to be untrue. So they decide that they have to walk. And they have this limited supply of rations. They decide that what's going to happen is, on the walk, if someone starts to go crazy, they're going to hit them over the head and take those rations and then keep going. And that's going to sustain as many people as can make it. But otherwise they're not going to get there. The person that you would think would struggle with this the most is
the doctor amputee,
the doctor lady, Nimel Pramat. So as they are like starting this journey, they come to a river, and nobody can figure out how to cross the river.
Yeah, they've gone full Oregon Trail here, full Kiln Trail.
But who discovers how to cross it?
The doctor. She goes to one of those trees that's all rubbery and she saw that when the guy was thrown against earlier, it hardened. So she kind of figures out that if you hit it, it'll harden and then it'll soften. So I think she takes her crutch or walking stick and just hits it, batters it over and over and over again. She either knows or realizes or puts together that if you hit it hard enough, the tree will learn that it's getting hit and just stay hard and permanent. So she goes, "Here, there you guys go." And they're like, "What?" And she goes, "A ship, like cut it down, turn it into a boat to cross this river." And that's kind of proving her, as the slowest member of the journey, proving her worth to the team.
Proving her worth to the team, but also like proving her worth to their survival. So like,
yes,
if we're thinking in terms of pure capitalistic like economy, she was a resource suck. She's going to make them move slowly. She's going to like eat the food. She's like just going to bog them down. But she had the ingenuity, which is like kind of not an intangible, to think of like this solution to get across the river. So like to think of, and I think Dadaev like almost sort of like hints at this, like to think of the economy as like this give and take, purely capitalistic. How can I use a part of like another kiln creature to further my survival is not like a full picture, because like as humans, we use each other's ingenuity to learn to survive. It's not like we're just like evolving via passing our DNA down. We're learning things from each other, and that enables like the furtherance of the species. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Did I land the plane?
I think so. The thopter. You landed the thopter. It's like free market capitalism. I don't know what that means.
To think of individuals and things only as like an economic, only in terms of their economic resource use, forgets that they have like this thought that allows them to contribute.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Because everyone's trying to understand the Kiln way of life and ecology through human understanding, either through like society, capitalism stuff. And it seems like everyone's going to get a lesson and be like, that's exactly not how it is.
It's exactly not how it is. And then to like pull out from just the novel, I think it might end up being an argument for that's like not actually how we function either. That to think of like people and life in such like black and white resource, like, is this acceptable wastage, or is this like something that I can't live without? Like maybe we're losing an X factor that we take for granted.
Yeah, and the human understanding on this, everything is acceptable wastage. I mean, the reason they have to go walk back to camp anyways, because they're not going to get rescued. They build a radio out of the parts, and then they hear like, you're not getting rescued. It's actually a cost-saving measure. It's not cost-effective to go save you guys. We're just going to leave you there to die. And that's why they have to walk back in the first place.
Right.
And so they get across the river. They make camp for the night. And I did love this sort of closing lines. It's like, as the darkness deepens, the many voices of Kiln talk to us like 100 multilingual news channels all broadcasting at once. It's only bad news. We're never going to make it. And that's the end of part 2.
That's the end of part 2. I'm so excited to read part 3. Fraternite.
Yeah, what are some like okay, wait, so what are some overall thoughts of part 2? What do you were you satisfied?
I was satisfied. I thought like I liked getting more of the creatures. I am hoping for more. I'm betting there's more.
Yeah, what are your expectations or hopes for the final part 3?
I'm kind of torn as to whether I'm hoping for like an explanation of the Kiln builders. I don't know that I am. I don't. I'm more interested in like what are we saying about people, humans?
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get, if they leave it up to the mystery. I'm wondering if there's some sort of. That's really interesting. I never ever going to see, these mythological green men of Kiln that the Terralyn thinks that there is, and even though Dadaev constantly is thinking, like, I don't think this is humans. I think it's some unholy mashup of geology and vegetation that's making it look like this. I'm just really excited for it because this part delivered on its alien monsters. Like we got like, I'm like, show me the alien forests, show me what they look like. Even starting at the sort of drier, less habitable woods they went to, then to the wetter wetlands and tropical stuff and the elephants. Like I loved that. I want to see more of that, and it's exciting because I guess now they're out there multiple days on end. We're going to see what happens to them. Plus, though, they're going to bring all this shit back to the base. Like, it's going to be Jurassic Park velociraptors running through the labs, and that I'm really excited to see. And I am eager to see what the sort of final what is his theory on humanity here? Because, we're seeing this constant state of isolation, the Terrorland pitting people against each other, not trusting each other, paranoia. But then we see this alien life form where everybody's working together left and right, like willy-nilly pop off, join another creature. And sort of these humans are the exact opposite of it. And so I'm kind of curious to see what his final kind of epic understanding of humanity, working together, symbiotes, all that, what his kind of final treatise on that is.
Yeah, because like, as of now, like, of course, these things seem like monsters, but if you think about it, they're like a little less monstrous than the humans are in terms of the way that they treat each other.
Yeah, it also seems like, they talk about how the nature in Kiln is slowly sort of starting to react to the humans, coming in and burning stuff down. And that, I don't know if these two attacks, is this unprecedented? Is this sort of like Kiln is slowly learning how to fight back? And now also that the elephant appears to have eaten these two people. I don't know if these creatures have eaten other people before. Is this Kiln ecology going to have a better understanding of humans and thus be more able to infiltrate and infect? And, I don't know. I'm really curious to see where it goes. I really don't know what to expect. But I'm thus far loving this book. I love the visuals and the vibe and just like the gritty, creepy, fungal growth, everything, all these plants. It's really believable, realized, fully textured, fully fleshed out. And I'm excited to see more.
Me too. So we'll be back next week with part 3, Fraternité.
Fraternity.
Which is through the end of the book. Read now or forever hold your peace if you're afraid of spoilers. Follow us at D2DS Pod on Instagram and TikTok. We are on YouTube, I think, as of last week. So check out our video episodes. It's just the same as the audio.
And please comment on our social medias. Leave us a 5-star review. We love those reviews. Are honestly like make my whole week.
Honestly, like you guys, you're small but mighty, and you make life worth living for us.
Stop! I'm gonna cry.
Don't cry, William. That's my job.
Okay. Okay. We'll see you guys next week.
Okay. See you next week. Love you, William.
Bye. Clink.
Hey, daddies, bring your dragons, let's go to deep space.